God.
We try to make as much money off of everything that we kill. Don't feel any different than being 79 so far. Who knows what another year will bring.
For years, Tom Oar was the beating heart of Mountain Men Show, a true frontiersman who traded the rodeo for the rugged wild, living off the grid with his wife Nancy in Montana's unforgiving Yaak River Valley. But fans were left in shock when he quietly disappeared from the show, and now heartbreaking news has come to light. What really happened to the man who once stared down nature's worst with grit and grace? Is Tom Oar still alive? Or did the wilderness finally take its toll? Join us as we uncover the heartbreaking tragedy of Tom Oar from Mountain Men. The legend behind the leather. Long before Tom Oar became known as a wilderness expert on mountain men, he was chasing a very different life, one filled with roaring crowds, flying dirt, and the raw power of rodeo bulls. Raised in Rockford, Illinois, Tom grew up around horses. His father taught him more than just how to ride. He taught him how to work with animals, to understand them. By his teens, Tom and his brother were performing trick riding, already earning a reputation for their skill and daring. At 15, Tom hitchhiked to his first rodeo competition in Ohio. With little more than a bull rope and a dream, he stepped into a world that would define the next 20 years of his life. The rodeo circuit was punishing, but Tom thrived. He placed regularly in the top 10 of the International Rodeo Association and became a respected figure in the community. His body took a beating, but his spirit held strong. Then came 1970. During a ride on a bull named Woolly Bugger, Tom was thrown and knocked unconscious. It wasn't just another injury. When he came to, Tom felt different. He began to question the life he was living. Around that time, he met Nancy. She saw something in him, more than a rodeo cowboy. Together, they started dreaming of a life away from the chaos. By the late 1970s, Tom and Nancy were ready to make a change. They loaded an old truck paid for with muskrat pelts and headed west to Montana. There was no clear plan, only a shared belief in simpler living and the kind of freedom that couldn't be bought. Life in Montana was no easy transition. The winters were brutal. Cold crept into their bones, and food was scarce when hunting didn't go well. But Tom and Nancy stayed. They adapted, learned the land, and pushed forward. Every challenge made them stronger and more in tune with the wilderness around them. The real breakthrough came in Billings. Tom visited a shop that introduced him to brain tanning, an old method of softening hides using animal brains. The process was tough and time-consuming, but Tom took to it with the same dedication he once brought to rodeo. He mastered the skill and began creating leather goods that would gain attention far beyond their remote cabin. Their work became well known at black powder rendezvous events, where others appreciated the craftsmanship and the authenticity behind it. Tom had found a new kind of stage, one where tradition, not performance, was what mattered. Nancy, too, had embraced the lifestyle. She learned to trap, hunt, and live fully off the land. Together, they became true mountain people. Their cabin in the Yaak River Valley became a symbol of their shared strength. Built with their own hands and warmed by years of effort, it stood as proof of what can happen when two people commit to living on their terms. By the time Tom reached 80, he had become more than a TV personality. He was a man who had followed his heart, traded fame for fulfillment, and found peace in the rugged Montana landscape. But even the strongest foundations can develop cracks, and Tom's story was about to take a turn that would test everything he and Nancy had built together. How bad can it get? When fame invaded paradise. In 2012, television crews arrived in the Yaak River Valley. turning Tom Oar's quiet, private life upside down. The History Channel had discovered something rare. Real people living real lives, far removed from modern society. Mountain Men wasn't just another reality show. It struck a chord with viewers longing for authenticity and a glimpse into a world many had forgotten. Tom never sought fame. He was content in his leather workshop, surrounded by the tools and traditions he had honed over decades. The cameras followed him as he prepared animal hides, built winter shelters, and braved Montana's harsh seasons, always with Nancy by his side. Audiences saw a man who had rejected modern convenience to find a deeper connection to the land. The show quickly exceeded expectations. Week after week, viewers watched Tom's steady hands craft moccasins and leather shirts using methods passed down through centuries. His calm voice and weathered face became symbols of a simpler, tougher time, one where survival meant skill, patience, and respect for nature. Letters poured in from fans across the country and around the world. But fame brought challenges that Tom and Nancy had never imagined. Their remote cabin, once hidden deep in the Cabinet Mountains, suddenly appeared on maps and online. GPS coordinates meant to stay private leaked, exposing their sanctuary. What followed was an unrelenting invasion that shattered the peace they had spent decades building. Tourists arrived by the dozens. Cars rumbled up their long dirt road, filled with fans eager to catch a glimpse of the mountain man. Some visitors were respectful, snapping photos from a distance before moving on. Others were not so considerate. Strangers knocked on their door at all hours, asking for autographs or selfies. Some wandered freely on their property, treating the home like a tourist attraction. Summers were the hardest. Families from across America made the pilgrimage to Montana, turning Tom and Nancy's refuge into a popular destination. Tour buses added the Yaak River Valley to their wilderness packages. Even honeymooners from Switzerland showed up with cameras in hand, chasing a piece of the wildlife they'd seen on TV. Tom felt torn. He appreciated the genuine support and kind words from fans who found inspiration in his way of life. Many shared how the show had helped them through tough times or sparked their dreams of living closer to nature. Still, the constant influx of visitors wore on their sanctuary. They had chosen this remote place to escape the noise and pressures of the outside world. The valley had offered silence, space, and the freedom to live by their rhythms, not someone else's schedule. Privacy became a rare commodity. Simple chores like checking trap lines or gathering firewood turned into public spectacles when visitors appeared unexpectedly. The quiet conversations Tom and Nancy once shared while working side by side grew fewer and farther between, interrupted by the need to stay aware of who might be watching. Nancy, more private than Tom, struggled especially with the attention. She had never wanted to be a television figure. Though her role was smaller, fans treated her home like a public space. The woman who found peace in Montana's silence now faced slamming car doors and voices echoing across the valley at all hours. The emotional strain went beyond annoyance. Tom and Nancy had built their bond in those quiet moments, the shared glances, the easy silences, and the steady rhythm of working together toward common goals. Fame introduced a low hum of stress that changed the very texture of their daily lives. Tom realized that even modest celebrity came with a price he hadn't counted on. The lifestyle viewers loved was slipping away, eroded by attention and loss of privacy. The authenticity that made mountain men special was harder to keep when nothing remained truly private. As the seasons passed and Tom's health began to falter, a difficult question emerged, one he never expected to face. Was the life he fought so hard to build worth the cost of sharing it with the world? But fame wasn't the only threat stalking Tom through the Montana wilderness. His own body was about to betray him completely. Heart failure in the wilderness. The night began like so many others in the Yaak River Valley, quiet, cold, and blanketed in thick snow. The temperature had dropped well below freezing, and Tom and Nancy were settled into their rustic cabin, bracing for another long Montana winter. At 81 years old, Tom had faced countless harsh nights in the wilderness. This one should have been no different. But sometime after midnight, Tom suddenly woke up, gasping for air. His lungs felt unbearably heavy, like they were filled with stone. Each breath was a struggle, harder than the last. Panic crept into his chest, squeezing tight with the crushing weight that stole his ability to breathe freely. Nancy was roused by the sound of her husband struggling to breathe, and instantly she knew this was no ordinary cough or cold. For decades, Tom had taken pride in never needing doctors or hospitals. His body had endured rodeo injuries, brutal winters, and the relentless demands of living off the land. He had always bounced back, always found a way to keep going. But this was different. This was his body breaking down in a way that all his mountain skills couldn't fix. Nancy helped Tom into their old pickup truck, the same kind that had carried them into the wilderness all those years ago. But now, they weren't driving deeper into the wild. They were racing away from it, chasing a hope that felt painfully distant. The nearest hospital was in Libby, Montana, more than 80 miles away, over rough, icy roads. The drive was a nightmare. Nancy carefully navigated the slippery mountain roads while Tom fought for every breath beside her. There was no cell service, no neighbors nearby, and no emergency crew to call. They were utterly alone, with Tom's failing heart and Nancy's fierce determination. Mile after mile slipped by in darkness. Tom's breathing grew more ragged, but Nancy pressed harder on the gas, despite the danger. The truck's headlights cut through the swirling snow, lighting up a landscape that had once been their sanctuary, but now felt like a trap. The wilderness that had sheltered them now seemed to hold Tom back from the medical help he so desperately needed. When they finally reached the hospital, the doctors quickly understood the gravity of the situation. Tom's heart wasn't pumping blood effectively. Fluid had built up in his lungs, making every breath a battle. The diagnosis was heart failure, a condition that would change everything about their way of life in the mountains. The medical team moved swiftly, starting Tom on medications to ease the strain on his heart and clear the fluid from his lungs. But the doctors were honest about the challenges ahead for an 81-year-old man living so far from medical care. They fitted Tom with a heart monitor to keep track of his heartbeat, and recommended a defibrillator vest, a device designed to shock his heart back into rhythm if it stopped. For Tom, this vest symbolized everything he had tried to escape when he and Nancy first ventured into the wilderness. It was a piece of modern technology, a constant reminder that his body now depended on machines and medicines to survive. The man who had lived by his strength and skill now carried a device that might save his life one day. The drive back to their cabin was quiet and heavy. Tom wore the monitor against his chest, feeling its weight like a ticking clock. Nancy gripped the wheel tightly, realizing she was now the primary caretaker for a man whose body could give out again without warning. Their remote home, once a symbol of freedom and independence, now felt dangerously isolated. Back in the Yaak River Valley, nothing was the same. Tom could no longer work as hard or as long as he used to. Once simple tasks now required careful planning and frequent rest. Nancy took on more of the physical labor, chopping wood and managing supplies, all the while watching Tom closely. Their days no longer followed the natural rhythm of seasons and weather. Instead, they were ruled by the schedule of medications and medical checkups. The heart monitor beeped regularly, a sound that never belonged in the wilderness silence they had treasured for so long. Each beep was a reminder that their time in the mountains might be nearing its end. While Tom fought his real battle with heart failure, the internet declared him dead and mourned a man still breathing. What happens when the place you've always called home no longer feels safe? The internet's cruelest lie. In 2020, while Tom Oar quietly recovered from a serious heart condition deep in the Montana wilderness, a strange and painful rumor caught fire online. Someone had written a detailed, believable obituary claiming Tom had died. It wasn't a careless error or a vague post. It was a full obituary, filled with specifics about Tom's rodeo past, his years on Mountain Men, and even personal details that made it all sound official. The internet took it and ran. Social media lit up. Longtime fans who had followed Tom's journey for years shared the post on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Most didn't question it. The obituary felt real enough, and the timing only made it more believable. Tom had been appearing less frequently on the show, and many viewers remembered the scary moment in Season 11 when he battled breathing problems and was diagnosed with heart failure. The hoax seemed to confirm what people had feared. Before long, emotional tributes began pouring in. People who had never met Tom shared how his simple, rugged lifestyle had changed their perspective on life. Some said watching Mountain Men had helped them through tough times. Others thanked him for inspiring them to reconnect with nature or appreciate the quieter things in life. The grief was real, even if the story wasn't. Small media sites eager for clicks picked up the fake news and republished it without checking a single fact. Many didn't contact the History Channel or anyone close to Tom. As the false reports spread, even fans who usually looked for the truth started believing it. Memorial pages were created. Old video clips were posted with tearful captions. Online forums buzzed with discussions about Tom's legacy. The internet had made up its mind. Meanwhile, Tom and his wife, Nancy, were off-grid in the Yaak River Valley, focused on his health. They didn't scroll through social media or follow internet gossip. Their days were filled with medication schedules, doctor visits, and figuring out how to adapt their rustic lifestyle to Tom's condition. The idea that thousands of strangers believed Tom was dead would have sounded bizarre to them, if they even knew. So when it eventually came out that Tom was, in fact, alive, the relief was mixed with confusion and anger. People who had genuinely grieved felt tricked. Some were embarrassed. Others were furious. They had mourned a man who was still breathing, still healing. The experience left many wondering how something so false could spread so easily and why they believed it. For Tom's family and friends, the false death reports brought stress of a different kind. Phone calls from relatives, messages from worried acquaintances. They had to keep repeating the same thing. Tom's not dead. He's alive. He's recovering. What should have been a private moment became a frustrating battle with rumors and digital noise. But behind the fake death rumors lay a heartbreaking truth that would test Tom's spirit in ways the wilderness never could. What happened? What happened to Tom Oar? In 2015, Tom Oar faced a heartbreak deeper than anything nature had ever thrown at him. His daughter Keely passed away, and her loss cut through him in a way that no blizzard, wild animal, or remote hardship ever had. While the outside world saw him as the unshakable mountain man of mountain men, Tom was grieving in silence, carrying a pain that couldn't be shown on camera. or explain to the steady stream of fans praising his rugged life. At the time, Mountain Men was hitting its peak, and Tom's face had become familiar to millions of viewers around the world. But behind that weathered face and quiet smile was a father mourning his child. The man known for resilience and grit suddenly found himself up against something that no survival skill could fix. Grief wasn't a problem he could hunt or outlast. It simply settled into his life, changing everything. Tom did his best to keep going. Cameras rolled, fans kept watching. But inside, something shifted. The wilderness, which had always brought him peace, now felt heavier, quieter. It no longer offered the same comfort it once did. When fans showed up at his home unannounced, hoping for a handshake or a photo, they had no idea what Tom and Nancy were carrying inside. They saw a legend, not a man in pain. Florida started to feel like a real option. His son Chad had a life there, training horses in a place with sunshine, hospitals, and support. For a man who had built his reputation on endurance and independence, the idea of leaving the Yaak River Valley wasn't easy, but it was practical. And Tom had always been a practical man. He and Nancy spoke often about what came next. Leaving their cabin, their community, and the land they had loved for decades would be painful. But staying came with risks they could no longer ignore. Tom wasn't giving up. He was adapting, just as he had always done. Despite everything, Tom's hands never stopped creating. His leatherwork continued to draw admiration. The Willow Bend trading post remained a symbol of his skill and craftsmanship. He was still here, still working, still living, regardless of what the internet claimed. Will Tom and Nancy Oar pack up their lives and trade the wild beauty of Montana for a quieter, safer existence under Florida's sun? Or will they stay rooted in the valley that shaped their story and turn them into living legends? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.